Have you heard of the tragedy of the commons? It's what happens when we treat a shared resource irresponsibly, when we profit by exploiting it, and we can't stop others from doing the same. The tragedy of the commons. Classic examples include overfishing the oceans, overgrazing public lands, and polluting the atmosphere. Now you can add space to this list. It's getting crowded up there and awfully dangerous. Let me tell you what happened on Monday. Russia conducted an anti-satellite test, ASAT. A test that generated thousands of pieces of debris and set the world on edge. Russia destroyed one of its own satellites using a weapon launched from the ground. The weapon hit the Cosmos 1408 satellite. This satellite was launched by Russia in 1982. It weighed almost 2,000 kilograms. It was lying defunct. It was orbiting the Earth at an altitude of 485 kilometers. Then Russia fired a missile and the satellite fell apart. It disintegrated into thousands of pieces. 1,500 of those pieces are traceable, so they can be destroyed. But the others are not. Some of these are the size of hand grenades. Others are the size of bullets. They're now zipping around up there, putting thousands of satellites at risk of collision. The lives of many astronauts are in danger, and the interests of several nations in peril. The test was conducted not too far from the ISS, the International Space Station, which is helping us learn about the universe. The International Space Station is behind our collective advancements in the field of science, technology, and medicine. After Russia conducted the test, 7 astronauts on board the International Space Station, 2 of them Russians, had to take refuge inside their space vehicles. They had to run for cover. These space vehicles are docked to the International Space Station. The astronauts had to enter them because they were at risk. They were being hit by debris every 90 minutes. So they donned their spacesuits and they jumped into their spacecraft, just in case the station was hit. It was an alarming development. The astronauts are now out of danger, we're told, but the objects are still whizzing around them. Back on Earth, scientists are infuriated, as are politicians. NASA Chief Bill Nelson has issued a statement, and this is what he said, and I'm quoting, "I'm outraged by this irresponsible and destabilizing action with its long and storied history in human space flight. It is unthinkable that Russia would endanger not only the American and international partner astronauts on the ISS, but also their own cosmonauts. Their actions are reckless and dangerous, threatening as well as the Chinese space station and the taikonauts on board." The U.S. State Department has issued a statement too. It says Russia's test threatens the interests of all nations, that it jeopardizes the long-term sustainability of outer space, and clearly shows that Russia is not serious about opposing the weaponization of space. Listen to this.
This test will significantly increase the risk to astronauts and cosmonauts on the International Space Station, as well as to other human spaceflight activities. Russia's dangerous and irresponsible behavior jeopardizes the long-term sustainability of outer space and clearly demonstrates that Russia's claims of opposing the weaponization of space are disingenuous and hypocritical. The United States will work with our allies and partners to respond to Russia's irresponsible act.
He's talking about weaponization of space, something that all countries principally oppose but do not necessarily ensure. This test is a reminder of what the world faces, what future wars could look like. You see, we obsess with boundaries on land, securing them, while countries can be brought to a standstill by striking satellites in space. That's a frontier we need to guard. You see, satellite technology is baked into everything we need today. Much of modern day life depends on satellites. Today, Russia destroyed its own satellite. What happens if a country targets another country's satellite? Think of the possible scenarios. With one such strike, you can cripple critical systems. You can disrupt phone connections, shut down GPS systems, stop airlines from operating, block electronic payments, make your debit and credit cards useless, bring cable and internet networks to a halt. Basically, when you target a satellite, you can hit life and livelihoods of a whole country. Not to mention the damage you can do to its security apparatus. Today, everything is linked to satellites. Destroy them and you can take a country back to the 1800s. This is the weaponization of space. It's dangerous. And to be fair, Russia did not begin it. It's not the first country to conduct such a test. Others have done it before Russia. In January 2007, China carried out a similar anti-satellite test. It launched a ballistic missile into space which completely destroyed the Fengyun 1C, a Chinese weather satellite. The destruction created a cloud of more than 3,000 pieces of space debris. Much of it still remains in orbit and still poses a threat. Last week, in fact, there was a scare. The ISS, International Space Station, was forced to maneuver itself out of a potential collision with space junk. Junk released from this test conducted by China 14 years back. The ISS had to change its speed and raise its orbit to avoid a crash with the Chinese junk. That's another worry. Space debris poses a threat to all assets in space. And we have no way to control it sometimes. And of course, the bigger threat remains ambitious powers trying to take out each other's satellites, cripple the enemy's networks, make them vulnerable to attacks. This, like I said, is going to be the future of warfare, the fifth domain of warfare alongside land, sea, air and cyberspace. Its foundation is already being laid. So far, only 4 countries have shown their ASAT capabilities, anti-satellite capabilities: Russia, China, India and the United States. Only these 4 countries have successfully shot down their own satellites. India and the USA, they've tried to do this with caution, tried ensuring that their actions do not pose a threat to others. Russia and China, not so much. Either way, it is weaponization of space and potentially dangerous. Just imagine what will happen if non-state actors and rogue regimes developed ASAT capabilities. The consequences could be catastrophic. The bottom line is this: anti-satellite tests are problematic. Not only do they create debris that makes space inhospitable, they create weapons that can have a far more devastating impact. WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.